This video is part of a series where I'm taking excerpts from a conversation I had with Timothy Sandefur on the right to earn a living. You can check out the previous videos by going into the description. The links will be there. Let's get to the conversation.
So a couple examples that I've often heard of, and I want to see if you think this falls under this idea of violating the right to earn a living. You've seen issues from time to time where somebody will want to, say, like braid hair, in a community. Somebody want to start a business braiding hair, and then they'll be like, wait, no, you need some number of hundreds of hours in order to, be legally allowed to charge money to braid hair. Do you think those types of restrictions also kind of fall under this general category?
Oh, totally. So one thing that your listeners should keep in mind is whenever you hear the word permit, remember that is a derivative of the word permission. If you need the government to give you a permit, what that means is you're asking the government for permission. So that these laws, and they are on the books in a lot of places, say that you are not allowed to braid somebody's hair without government permission. That alone ought to put you on edge. Like, why should the government be in the business of telling me whether or not I'm allowed to braid hair? Now, a lot of people, they would answer the question this way. They would say, well, it's fine for you to braid hair for free. But if you braid hair for money, you need the government's permission. Why? Why does charging money for something make any difference at all? I'm still braiding the same hair, right? And if your concern is public safety, that doesn't change based on whether I charge money for the thing or not, right? So a lot of these things are in place for no good reason. But yeah, okay, let's assume that there's some kind of public safety risk with regard to braiding hair. And there might be, it might be that you're cutting hair with scissors, which a lot of hair braiders do not do. But let's say, in which case maybe you cut somebody. Okay, so maybe the government can say, let's make sure that you know how to use a pair of scissors. Okay, the problem is that these licensing laws often require, as you said, hundreds, maybe thousands of hours in training. And the training very often has nothing to do with hair braiding. So there was a case in the 1990s in California where a woman named Joanne Cornwell wanted to start a business called Sister Locks, where she was braiding hair for money. And the state said, you have to get a barber license to do that. And to get a barber license, you had to spend, I can't remember now, but I think it was thousands of hours learning at a barber college how to do hairstyles that she didn't want to do. And not just that, but hairstyles that she could not perform on the hair of her customers because her customers are primarily Black. And a lot of these hairstyles can only be performed on the hair, on the kind of hair that white people have. So you have sort of what they nowadays call structural racism built into the licensing requirements for this business. And why does that exist? It's not to protect the public. I mean, who are we kidding? These laws exist to protect the jobs and the income of those businesses that are lucky enough to already have a license because they want to block competition. It's a centuries-old game, and it's still going on.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, you're right. That's something really the reasonable people on the right and the left. There's in terms of removing laws that would be, as you say, structural racism, this to me jumps out as one. There should just be widespread agreement that these are insane and we would be doing well, right? There's plenty that there'd be disagreement on, and those, fight over those, argue over those, but on this should be a no-brainer home run.
It is, and you're right. I think most people do easily say this is stupid, but as you well know, there's a dynamic called rent seeking, or the public choice problem that public choice economics has explained in detail, but a lot of people still don't understand it. And what public choice shows is that it's the study of lobbying the government, why and how people lobby the government. And the reason why they invest their time and money in lobbying the government, which does take a lot of time and a lot of money. The reason they invest a lot in that is because they expect to get a profit from it. And the reason they expect a profit from it is because when government does something like redistribute wealth, right, tax money, takes money from taxes and then gives it to other people, or imposes a licensing law that limits access to a market, whenever it does something like that, it's concentrating the benefits on a small group of people and imposing costs on a large group of people. And because they're dispersed widely, the costs are relatively minor. for, a barber licensing law might cost me, if you broke it all down, a quarter of a penny, right? When I go get my hair cut, try and figure out how much of that is attributable to the fact that the government has a licensing law in place. It's probably a very small amount of money. And so it's not enough to motivate me to go down to the government and complain about it. On the other hand, the people who have licenses and they get benefits from it, they get a lot of benefit from it because it excludes competition. And it's so much money in their pockets that they are going to go down to the legislature and lobby in favor of these kinds of restrictions. So a few years ago, here in Phoenix, where I live, the Goldwater Institute championed a bill to eliminate licensing laws for hair dryers. This is a popular thing nowadays, blow dry bars. I got short hair, so I don't do this. But there's a lot of women who, for whatever reason, they like to go to these blow dry bars where they're not cutting your hair, they're just blowing it out. And I've seen women do this. They look beautiful. They're fantastic. I didn't know how this works, but good for them. But the law required all of this training and government permission to use a blow dryer on somebody's hair. And we said, this is unreasonable. So we tried to get a law passed through the state legislature here that said you don't have to go through all these hours of training to use a blow dryer. Oh, you would have thought we were murdering children in the streets. I kid you not. You can find this online. Go and find some of the videos of the testimony at this legislative hearing, where we were told by the people who already had licenses that there were going to be people literally dying if we pass this law. If you let people blow dry hair without government permission, people will literally be dying.
Although the bill may create a few more jobs, I ask at what risk? We can't even quantitate how many jobs. So the answer is, well, I don't know, however many there might be. So the next question is, at what cost, right? When Aunt Esther goes in for her styling, what if she gets MRSA? Who does she go to? She puts a bad Yelp review. She sues the person that gave her MRSA because they didn't follow certain infectious disease controls.
Even the labor secretary came out and said the other day, and I have his statement here that I can provide as exhibits, that said in this time of deregulation, we must take into consideration licensure, occupational licensure that considers public safety. This is without a doubt public safety. There's going to be no job creation. There might be a few salons that's willing to take that risk. But the majority of the employers that I talk to, and I own 3 beauty schools, and the people that employ our students and graduates do not want someone without a license. They do not want to take the risk and the liability that if something happens. In my schools, and I agree with Kendall, I've had lice, I've had ringworm, I've had scabies, I've had dermatitis, I've had open wounds from cancer, and I had MRSA twice. And that is scary. And you cannot be irresponsible in your voting today and go on record and vote for something that are going to put your constituents in harm's way. You just can't. These things will happen. The opposition says we're distributing pictures as a scare tactic, but come live in our world where people come in, we're touching each other all the time. It's real, and it cannot be ignored. So I'm going to brush my hair. I may or may not have taken a shower today.
Time's up.
Who wants to use my brush?
Time.
Now, that was a couple of years ago. The law did get passed. You don't need that kind of license in Arizona. So far, no fatalities.
Oh, I was going to say there had to have been a huge spike in deaths, right? I mean, oh, crazy.
But the reason for that agitation is because those people who were showing up, they had those licenses. They didn't want competition.
They have power. They'll speak loudly. They'll often give campaign contributions to politicians. So it's a real.
And you and I are not probably giving campaign contributions to politicians on the premise that they should go repeal the blow dry bill. Right.
Yep.
If you and I are giving contributions to candidates, it's probably over something like the Ukraine war or something like that. We're probably not. But these people, it's their bread and butter.
Yep. Yeah, and you could think for hairstylists, maybe if the laws are relaxed significantly, maybe it's $1 cheaper per haircut or $2 cheaper. Okay, you might save $20-$30 a year or something. That your average person is not giving any contributions for that.
And so when we advocate for eliminating these licensing laws, it's not really about primarily lowering costs for the consumer. That's a great benefit. Rather, the reason why these laws should be eliminated and these barriers lowered is because of the precious importance of the right to earn a living. It's because for that entrepreneur, that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
And I really dread, I mentioned this, I wrote another book called The Permission Society, where I said that I really dread the idea of America turning into a land, and I fear we're already seeing this, where some brilliant young person comes up with an ingenious new business idea and then says, why bother? It would be so much work to get a permit, to get a license, to get the government permission would be so much work. It's not worth pursuing. That it would be horrible, because now, that new baby that Benjamin Franklin talked about is never born, and we never get to know what the future might have held.
Yeah.